In preparation for this video, I made some changes to the group and the policies in there. So let's try to catch up and be on the same page. Remember, we have a bucket tutorial repo that we have some objects inside. And at this point, we had access to read and to upload. But what we're going to do is on the left-hand side with the admin, we're going to give much more broad policies so that you can do more, but also restrict you in a way that you can't mess other things up. So anyways, go to the IAM user groups. So IAM user groups. Let's go back to that group S3 partial access. Now here's the user, the one single user in there and the permissions. Now in these permissions, I have 3 right now. We have Cloud Shell, full access, sign in local development. Great. So before we even get started, let's change our group name because it's no longer S3 partial access. We're going to give access to developers. So we'll call this demo dev access. So we want to give all the developers this type of access, for example. All right, so we renamed the group demo dev access. So all your developers, so you might have user 4, user 5, user 6, developer A, B, C, D, whatever, all will be in this group for developers. Every developer needs Cloud Shell access. Every developer needs sign-in local development access. Or to be specific, every developer on this specific project needs this access. Remember, we have to grant the permissions by the job, and this would be the least privileged way to do this particular job. Now let's go into this user S3 access all, which, excuse me, you might not even have. So let's delete this. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and we'll start all over. User S3 access all. You may have 2 other policies on here, the S3 partial access, and I forget what other one. You can go ahead, the upload. You can remove those if you'd like. It would probably be best to stay on the same page as me. So if you remove them, you should be down to these 2. And what I'm going to show you is how to add another policy that's going to give us more access. So when we start using the console, it'll just be so much easier than going back and forth all the time, granting access. So let's do an inline policy again. JSON. Yeah, we're going to add 4 statements total. So this is how it should start. Statement number 1, and follow me along here. We're going to do ListAllBuckets. We want a ListAllBuckets policy. And so in the action, we're going to put S3 list all my buckets. This is at the account level. We want to list all buckets. We'll put a star in here. So at the account level, you can now list all the buckets once you save this anyways. Let's add another statement. All right, listing buckets is fun, but that's not very useful for later on. Let's do a list tutorial repo bucket. We want to be able to list this bucket, allow, and for this one we'll do S3 list bucket. I know it seems redundant, but they're slightly different. Well, they're very much different. And in this one, we'll put in the actual bucket name. So the ARN colon AWS colon S3 colon bucket dash tutorial repo. Got it. And that's it. Exactly like that. So this is listing all the buckets in the account. This here allows you to list the objects that are in this particular bucket. So you won't be able to find objects in other buckets, but you can see the bucket names. Good for you to know. You don't have to do it that way, but that's how we're doing it. So we're going to add another statement, and this statement is the read tutorial repo objects. The SID is an optional statement identifier used to label the policy statement. Typically it's human readable. So what's the action on that one? We're going to do S3 GetObject. Okay, and which resource? Well, let's go back to I got a new keyboard, so I'm struggling. R in AWS S3, get used to this. Boom, boom, boom. Bucket. The only thing that I don't get used to is calling it bucket tutorial repo. And we want to read the objects in the bucket, so /star. Got it? So now we can read every object inside the, if I spell it correctly anyways, BUCK, bucket tutorial repo. And finally, one more statement, add statement. I know this is long-winded, but this is the last time we'll probably have to mess with this. Full access to user objects. Allow, and this one's going to be the S3, the old good old-fashioned star. Allow every single action, but we limit it to a resource. So this is pretty common to do. The resource we limit every action to. Now this is, pay attention to this one. We're going to do ARN AWS S3 like normal. Boom, boom, boom. Bucket tutorial repo. And now we're going to also add user S3 /star. So we're going to allow access to absolutely every action from S3 only to this specific prefix, user-S3. Again, it's not technically a folder, but we'll call it a user S3 prefix. Let's save this and see what happens. Boom. Let's name the policy. Let's just call it, well, the policy is based on tutorial repo, so we'll call it tutorial repo S3 user access. So we want anyone to have access to this user. All right, so we should be cleaned up where we have 3 policies attached to this group, the demo dev group. So when you have a friend that needs access to this very particular bucket with prefix, you would put them in this group. Okay, saved. Let's go back over to our S3 buckets on the user S3 signed in buckets. Refresh. Everything should be still good. I can list all these buckets. Let's open this thing up here real quick. So list all buckets. That's what I did. Let's go into a pet shots front end. It's not that I was denied. It's that I didn't have an applicable policy allowing it. The distinction matters on explicitly denying versus just never allowing. You're locked out of everything by default, and you have to actually explicitly allow the permissions and actions you want the principal to have. So remember this. There's an implicit deny, which means you never granted permission, so access is denied. But then there's an explicit deny. This is where there's a specific policy that specifically says, in the effect, deny. Then access is denied. Even if another applicable policy says allow, the denied takes precedence. It's crucial for the test. Let's go into bucket tutorial repo. Everything is in there. That's pretty cool. Let's delete an object in there. Guess what? You don't have permission because I only gave you, let's look again down here. We only gave you full access to do delete actions and any other action under user S3. Now you might say, well, we don't have user S3. I can't even upload anymore right here. If I try to upload, add file, I don't want to make this too long-winded, but we're just going to upload a random document. Upload, failed. So what do? How do you create this folder? You don't need to create the folder offhand, but if you want to upload and use it, you can. You can create the user or the folder called user S3, create the folder, and then inside that folder, you should magically have all access. So let's go in there, upload a file, upload succeeded, and there's the file. Let me go back one. Let me close that. Let's go back to our bucket tutorial. Here's the list. I can read everything in here because I'm allowing you to read objects within tutorial repo bucket. in here, user S3, I click on it, I can go in here and read it because I have specific access to everything in this user S3 prefix. Now I can delete this object too. Only in here though. Watch. Delete. Delete. And it should be gone. I have access. Successfully deleted. Close. Now my user S3 is empty. So this is going to be useful. We're going to keep this around for now. Maybe in the next tutorial, instead of user S3, we'll make that into a parameter that changes based on which user's logged in and gets that access. But for now, we don't need to keep messing with the S3 bucket access rights. So when we're in the console, we'll just start doing, of course, down here in the shell, I can give you, so AWS S3, and then you can upload, delete anything you want from there. Hope this is useful. In the next lesson, we'll deal with the command line interface once again.